All right, everybody, we're back for another episode of Big Talk About Small Business. I'm here with my co-host, Eric Howerton, and we've got a couple great guests today. We have Justin Macedo, who is one of my former students who acquired Uncle Sam's Outfitters, an outdoor and military surplus store based here in Fayetteville, Arkansas. I think he actually bought it like a month before you graduated, didn't you?
I did, yeah. I bought it on November 23rd, and I graduated on December 17th.
Wow. And, then he just got married recently. I ran into Justin in the airport a couple of weeks ago, coming back from Goshen, Indiana.
Yeah.
And met Justin's new wife, who's fantastic.
So this was 6 months ago when he bought that, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah.
So he's making the full commitment, man. The
you're in now.
The wife, everything. Still driving the old Ford truck.
There you go.
Glad to see, which is a good quality. Put your money into your business, right, Justin?
Amen. Just hit 180,000 miles.
Hey, it's just getting going.
Barely broke it in. Then we also have today with us Johnny Smith, and Johnny was one of my favorite students. He's, classic front row guy, always asks the tough questions of everybody.
Did you ever have to say, Johnny, please, no more questions?
Never. I never said that. I'm sure some of the students probably did, but I never said it.
It's because he was a student there trying to learn something.
Yeah.
He was asking questions.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Johnny and I became friends over the last couple of years, and he's a super entrepreneurial guy himself. His dad owns a body shop, and Johnny's had a variety of side ventures, including one that makes dashboards with another guy for hot rods and racing cars.
Nice.
And we've even done some rock crawlers. I think there's a guy in Canada who had a snow plow that he did the mountain roads, and so he needed the roll and tilt gauges because there's a certain point in which I guess it's a critical point where they don't function right, and also it'll just roll off the side of the mountain.
Nice.
And so he wanted some very, very specific gauges with roll and tilt, and it's kind of a very interesting piece of machinery because it's two separate kind of vehicles. So he needed a roll and tilt on the front and the rear because they can move independent.
Oh, it's articulated in the middle.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
It's like from the 70s or 80s, and he's redone it and needed. It's really interesting.
Sounds dangerous as hell to me. It sounds like something I'd kill myself on.
Yeah. That Jeep you're driving today is something you could kill yourself on.
It totally is. Yeah. I may need one of your dashes to make sure that I don't roll over my Jeep.
That thing is wild, man.
Yeah.
But anyway, I thought it'd be fun to have Johnny here. He is now going into the PhD program here.
Awesome.
At the Walton College.
Studying what?
Business.
I'm sorry, Mark. I asked such a silly, ignorant question.
Entrepreneurship, strategy, entrepreneurship, and venture innovation.
Dang.
It's going to be his thrust. But anyway, which is going to be a great life. I encouraged him to look into it. But I thought we'd have Johnny here just to ask the tough questions of Justin. Anything ask.
So Mark's basically passing the buck over to you now, Justin. Here's your questions.
No, Justin, tell everybody just a little bit about your story. I think it's a great story. And, I've always been a big advocate of this idea that you don't have to do a cold start. You can go out and buy a business to get into entrepreneurship. And you certainly pulled that off. So tell everybody a little bit about yourself and your business and how you got into it.
Yeah. So, to be honest, I don't think I even really thought about buying a business. I knew people that did it, but I didn't know that it was I didn't think that I could do it until your class, and you talked about it. You're like, well, here's 50 people that have done it, and you're no different. So I was like, all right. That kind of was the seed for the actual purchasing of the business. But the day after I graduated high school, I applied through a Craigslist ad that said sales associate wanted outdoor store, and there was no description, no location, no anything. It was pretty sketch. And I was like, all right, I'm going to apply because I
I like outdoors.
I like outdoor stuff, and I figured it would work. So I applied, and I was like, well, there's 3 outdoor stores in Fayetteville, so I'd be happy with any of them.
Yeah.
And applied there, got the job, started the day after I graduated high school, and I've been working there part-time for, well, like last week was 5 years that I've worked there. So, yeah, worked there.
You're still working half-time, only 12 hours a day, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, yeah. But yeah, went there, enrolled at the University of Arkansas. I was originally a biology major. I thought I wanted to be a dentist. And the funny part is the only reason I wanted to be a dentist was because I wanted to own my own practice and make my own hours. I had zero interest in actually being a dentist.
Thank God you didn't do that.
I know.
Dealing with some nappy grills all day long.
Yeah.
Show me your grill.
The only cool dentist was Steve Martin in Little Shop of Horrors. If you would have been a dentist like that, I would have come seen you.
All right.
Yeah. You need to watch that if you haven't seen it.
I'll have to check it out.
Well, you do have good teeth, so I guess that would...
Yeah, I mean, that's all you need, right? You don't need a pass chemistry.
So, right.
So you got out of that somehow. You got seduced away by the world of business and from dentistry, or what?
To be honest, it was I couldn't pass Chem 2. And it was an honors Chem 2, and I was at the point where I'm like, I can't do this. I need something else, and I chose small business management as my major because it was the least amount of hours to graduate.
There you go. Sounds like an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
He's smart. He's thinking about the best use of his time. Right?
Yeah.
Man.
Every other major would require a full extra year, and this one would require just half an extra year. So I was like, all right, well, I can do an extra semester. It's no problem.
Yeah.
And once I got in, I just fell in love with the major itself. It was pretty funny. So right after my freshman year of college, I went to this thing called the fly fishing film tour. And there was this guy there that guided in Alaska, and he looked younger. And I was like, hey, I was shooting the breeze with him, and I was too young to drink, so there was no drinking involved. This guy was pretty drunk. And I was like, hey man, how did you guide in Alaska? And then he puts his arm around me and he goes, listen here, I've got the spot for you. I'm like, okay, let me know. And so he gives me his number. He texts me this place called Sweetwater Guide School, which is actually on my cup still. But it's a guide school that basically has like 100% job placement for becoming a fly fishing guide. So I did that.
You're talking Eric's language. He loves
I love that
stuff.
word.
Yeah.
He had an outdoor magazine at one time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when I was 22.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
But so I went there, and the people at Uncle Sam's were nice enough to let me take summers off. So for the past 4 summers, I've been able to take off and guide places. So I guided fly fishing there, and that was kind of like the moment. I was a 19-year-old with a captain's license going to Alaska by myself, living in a trailer in the woods for 3.5 months.
Beautiful.
4 months.
Love it.
And I got there, did a season there, and I realized I was like, I can kind of do whatever I want. Like there's no bounds. Like there's like, as a 19-year-old, I can go and get a Coast Guard captain's license and go out to middle of nowhere, Alaska and work. I'm like, so I can kind of do whatever. I was planning on going back there. COVID hit, kind of threw some kinks in there. That was about the time that I realized biology and becoming a dentist was not for me. So switched over to business and then guided at this place called Wayford Adventures for backpacking for the past 3 summers.
And where was that?
That was in southwestern Colorado. Yeah.
That's cool.
Was able to do all of that and then truly use all of the gear that we have in the store, which is always pretty fun.
Good way to learn about it.
Oh, yeah.
I always think it's strange when you deal with a business and then the owner of the business isn't into whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
You know, it seems crazy to me, but there's businesses out there like that. I knew a guy that owned a body shop business that was super successful. He was on the cover of Inc. magazine and he told me he hated cars. He said, I just hate them. I have no interest in them at all. But he did have 5 wives by the time he was 40, so he had an interest in something.
Yeah.
Just wasn't cars.
So what are you going to do this summer? I mean, what's your summer trip this summer? now that you have his business?
Well, not much. I'm going back
Loaded
to that
question.
place, and I'm guiding a 4-day trip, just as like a guest guide. They allow us to come back, so that'll be my vacation for the
And then you'll be
summers.
coming back and
Yeah.
work in the store.
Yeah.
Yep.
Although I'll still be technically working on those 4 days.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So what was it like, though, this new major of entrepreneurship, whatever we want to call it? What was it like? What were the classes like that you took?
Well,
I mean, I know you took mine, but what else? What were the other classes like? Did they really prepare you, I guess, is what I'm asking.
I think on the broad sense, I feel like when I can talk the lingo now. I understand whenever I'm talking to other guys that, especially like that own something that's, I mean, Uncle Sam's right now I have 2 other employees because one of my guys just graduated. So like, we're not super big. We don't have a huge organizational structure. It's like me and these other guys, and you just hang out and talk pretty much. Like, it's like, hey, we need to do this. Let's do this. And like, we all kind of do it together, stuff like that. So like, it sort of helped figure out like definitely the finance side, but like the nuts and bolts as far as like I had to figure out by myself how to build a website or how to use QuickBooks or how to like talk to a bank. And like, I think your class was one of the only classes that talked about like, hey, this is like what you need for a business plan, or this is what you need for like actually talking to a bank. Like, this is what they need. So the other classes, it's like, I'm not using full-blown economics in my day-to-day. Like, I'm not doing that whenever I'm making an order.
Yeah,
But it's helping a bit, like being able to look at the whole retail landscape, or just like even more specifically, the outdoor retail landscape. And it's like going into those trends and stuff and understanding those. It definitely helps a bunch having a baseline understanding of the picture as a whole.
Yeah, you got to know what's going on in the world, no matter what business you're in. I think it impacts it potentially, creates opportunities or poses threats.
Yeah. I mean, it was pretty funny. So I've got one of my guys he's a poli-sci major, and he's super into global politics. And he was talking about the Ukraine and Russia stuff like way before it happened. And he's like, hey, we need to get, because we're military surplus as well. He's like, we need to get more military surplus in. I'm like, okay, yeah. And then the Russia invades Ukraine, and all of a sudden we sell all of our military surplus.
Yeah.
And it's like a little bit of fear, but a little bit of like, we had like, I don't know, 10 or 12 guys that came in. They're like, oh yeah, like I've got my cousin or my best friend's going to like Ukraine and going to go fight. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Wow.
So we've got all of our stuff there, but
good move.
Yeah. So tell these guys, tell our listeners a little bit about how you ended up buying this business that you worked in as a student.
Yeah. So it would have been my official senior year, but I still had an extra semester. That 8th semester of college, I was doing a project for Zweig's class about this business. It was a consulting project, and I've worked there a bunch. I know the ins and outs. We had one of our managers leave during COVID, so I was already doing like some of the ordering and some of like the kind of like more, like I had a fair amount of responsibility. So I did the project over that, and I had these list of questions that I was asking the owner, because this owner was somewhat new. He had bought it from his dad like a year and a half prior to this. So sometime the deal went through in like 2020-ish. And then I was talking to him at the beginning of 2022 and asking these questions like, so what do you see long-term for Uncle Sam's? He's like, I don't feel like owning it forever. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm like, how long is forever? And he's like, well, like, don't tell anyone else, but like, there's a guy right now interested in buying it. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I was like, well, if that deal ever falls through, like, let me know, because, I might be interested in buying it, just like tossing it out there, just kind of like on a whim. And like a week later, he comes up to me, he's like, hey, were you serious? I was like, serious about like what? Like like we've had a bunch of conversations since then. He's like, no, you're serious about like buying the business. I was like, yeah.
Nice.
And so from there, we had that conversation that night. I went fishing with my dad for the white bass run, and I was telling him about it. I'm like, hey, there's a chance that Uncle Sam's is for sale. And I may have told the owner that I'd be interested in buying it.
You have any capital?
Yeah, this is before any of that.
Right.
It's like, well, I could sell my truck.
Yeah.
And that's about it. But yeah, we were talking about it, and he's like, man, go for it. Just like keep on going until it either works or it doesn't. I was like, okay. So he trusted me and was like, hey, just keep on continuing. So
I just want to throw one thing in, though. Everybody thinks you need a whole bunch of money to go buy a business. There are plenty of businesses out there. You don't need anything. Not to say that was the case in Justin's situation, but I mean, just in the last couple of weeks, I was aware of 2 free businesses out there that could be picked up. I've got some students of mine doing one of them. So they're already committed.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways you can make that happen. Like owner finance. I mean, there's terms. I mean, it's all it's all kind of open for discussion.
Yeah, everything's open for negotiation. Every aspect,
especially like during remember the COVID times. I mean, you had a lot of entrepreneurs that were just. I mean, being an entrepreneur is exhausting, but then you have some macro event that makes it even more challenging. I mean, a lot of folks. I mean, there was a great opportunity, panicking, just tired, didn't want to deal with the next hurdle.
Exactly.
I mean, just getting people a way to escape something that they're not happy about anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, you can land on some good deals.
When you were early in talks for buying it, did you, have any goals or dreams of where you wanted to be financially, personally in the next 6 months, year, 5 years, 10 years? And did you have any idea what the financial position of the store was? Did you know if they were making money? Did you know how much the owner was taking? Like, did you even know if buying this would have aligned with your plans or goals if you had a specific financial goal for yourself?
Yeah. So, I mean, my thought entering out was that there's it's like, I'm going to go get a corporate job at Walmart and I'm going to make whatever the going rate is at the time. And it's like, and then from there, we'll figure it out. Like, it was just kind of like, I would prefer to do other things. And it's like, I was like, man, I could go guide in Alaska again and do like full-time stuff, or I could go kind of do whatever. It's all kind of up in the air. And then my girlfriend and I, at that point, were getting more serious. And I'm like, oh, well, if we get married, I can't go guide in Alaska, and I need to find a job that'll pay better. And then it was funny, during the project, the owner didn't really want to share any of the finances. I knew generally from like our point of sale system and just what I've worked there for 5 years. I know what a good year is, what a bad year is, just generally. So I knew how much we were making. I knew from my math that the business could not be making much money if it was. So that was a little bit of a scary one sitting in, because it's like, well, I'm like if I have to buy a ring and I need to I get to buy a ring. It was a great thing.
Yeah, right.
Oh yeah.
Then I have to.
No, it was not a half.
Hopefully your wife won't watch this and hear that comment.
No. But just like finance wise, it's just like, well, this, and this. And it's like, well, my truck needs a bunch of work. And it's like that mentally, it was like in that moment, it's just like, oh, I can't do this. And then talking with the owner and like getting the actual finances down, and then like talking with banks and realizing like, oh, I don't have to like front all of the cash, because like my mind all the time was you have to pay everything in cash.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's not the case. So yeah, it was like my financial goals will, with the way the business has been going, will end up great. Personal finances. The business stuff, definitely looking at the beginning whenever you're like, oh, this thing is bleeding money a little bit. It's pretty scary.
Yeah.
And then slowly as we were going through looking at the finances more and more, I think the owner, I could see what he claimed he was taking out. Couldn't always see like there's anything else that was going on. But like I could see like he was paying like his gas, like paying whenever he was driving, anything he was charging for gas, he'd put on the company card and like all these things. So I could figure out roughly what he was making. And then doing the math, I was like, well, I could live on this, but can me and my future wife live on this? So that was a kind of a fun one to discuss with my fiance at the time.
Yeah, you got a lot of that information during the course of the project.
Yeah, I got a fair amount there, and then a lot of it came out once.
In the due diligence phase.
Yeah, during the due diligence phase of all of that. That's where, I was able to get, the hard part was because it had changed hands only 2 years before, and the accounting, the bookkeeping, all that was pretty bad before that 2 years. So it was kind of just based off of feel and based off of, I was like friends with the old manager / she was the daughter of the owner, not this last one, but the one before. And she was like, these are what the years did. And I'm like, I'm putting a lot of trust in you because this is like what it is. And it's like just based off of working there and feeling like, oh, this was a super busy year. Like 2019, we were slammed. And it's like, oh, that would make sense based on 2020 or 2021 or so. But yeah, and then I was able to get like tax returns for the past 10 years. But outside of that, it was just kind of somewhat going in the dark.
But like when you get your hands on the books of a small business, it doesn't necessarily tell you too much because they can be so just cooked.
It was pretty cooked.
Whether intentionally or unintentionally.
Yeah, no, and I don't think this was like intentionally cooked, but it was like, you definitely look at it and you're like, man, like there's like none of this is making sense. Like if this business is supposed to be making, like if on our point of sale, it says we did $500,000 in sales. And then I look at all these other things and it's claiming that we made $375. I'm like, where does $125,000 go? I'm like, where did it go? And it's like, I know it's somewhere. And then like you look at like your purchase orders and you're like adding up all of your purchase orders. It's like, well, the purchase orders themselves, like they just weren't added correctly into the books. Yeah. So it's like right there is mistakes. Yeah, it's like right there is $40,000 to $50,000 of inventory that was there, but just wasn't accounted for. It was just scanned in and that was it. It was like,
I think that's a good example of just like the intensity of the discipline of accounting.
Oh yeah.
You know, I mean, like,
so critical.
And it's so hard too for a small business. You know, I think that's what a lot of folks, that whenever I talk to any new entrepreneur, you know, like what's the most important things? I'm like, if you're starting out and as you're going and as you're growing and even as you sell, have a really damn good accountant.
Yeah.
You know, in bookkeeping, as much as an accountant, actually more than an accountant, I think a bookkeeper.
It's true.
Or that role.
The discipline of just doing it all consistently and on time.
Yeah.
But you know, there's
and then attorney. I was going to say illegal attorney.
Oh, yeah. And one that actually knows about this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Not a divorce attorney.
Well, that was part of what Justin had to find in order to get his deal inked up as an experienced attorney and stuff, because they'll all take the job. It's just a question of are they any good at it or not.
Yeah.
Or a lot of them will. But back on what we were just talking about there, a lot of small business owners, if they've got cash sitting in their cash register, just pull that out and just shove it in their pocket, and they get away with it for years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like they just pull the $100, $200 out a day, and it never shows up in their system. And they get caught doing that sometimes because they go back and check all the purchase orders when they audit you. But it's really, really common.
Yeah, it is. I think that too, like on that point, you know, and obviously we're not saying anything about this particular case, but I mean, I've experienced, at least in my business career, there is a lot of opportunity to not do things either ethical or legal ways.
Oh yeah.
Mostly ethical, right? But you know, choosing that high road, I mean, that's not, you know, you can find yourself in a bad pickle if you don't have that discipline and keep your conscience checked, because it can ruin everything for you.
Oh yeah.
I would say there's not even just opportunity to take the unethical route, but there's encouragement. Yeah. And in a lot of small business circles, and it happens in corporate America too, but in small business circles, it's not even talked about because it's just understood that any cash is being hidden. I mean, these people in the circles that I've been in will be driving a brand new truck every year, yet their business is losing $100,000.
Right.
And how's that going on? Well, it's because they're cash rich, and it's not going on any paperwork, and it works well if they don't get caught. Usually they don't, and it works well unless they need to sell the business.
Right.
Then they're screwed because they showed a loss for 5 years or for 2 years and a small gain, and then
Yeah, you're right.
and then they can't sell for anything.
So there's a lot of wisdom on that, because I was actually going to say, it kind of backs up to what Mark and I've talked about before. You have people that start businesses that are not trying to grow, and they don't have we say exit strategy, but even if your thinking is do I want to make impact? Do I want to grow this business and have a bona fide true company with people that are running this thing?
Yeah, that has value that I can extract and get out.
Yeah, and that you can eventually sell and get a big check one day. And you, to your point, John, you can't hide the $100, because that's actually hurting you in the long run. You stack those $100 every day over the next 10 years. That's a lot of money on a big check.
Yeah,
at the end.
That's like any business I planned on selling, we always had audited financials, a history of audited financials, because it just gives you a whole lot more credibility. You go out there with your internally generated stuff or a compilation level outside accountant done by your one person accounting firm, it just has no credibility.
Yeah.
But anyway, so there's always something, but that wasn't necessarily a problem in your case. But you did, just to go back to Johnny's original question, I remember I posted to you in class. I'm like, if you would you be happy? Because I could see sort of the path and what the potential was based on the info you gave us.
Yeah.
And in the end, I guess you decided that you could do it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you could meet those goals.
Yeah.
But it's going to be critical for you to grow the business or to do that. You can't do it just by operating it as is.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was part of the thing. We've talked about, we spent, I don't even know, a week talking about bootstrapping. And I feel like I watched from after you said it, of course, every YouTube page on my YouTube said bootstrapping. I'm like, well, I guess I should probably watch all of these if they keep on popping up. And it was like once I took over, it was like I cut our monthly costs for all sorts of things down exponentially. We were paying nearly $500 for cable, internet, and phone. And I cut that down to $130 a month. It's just right there. It's that's 300 and whatever that is, $50. It's just on cable alone. It's we are a retail shop. We don't need cable. So it's all sorts of those other things. It's just cutting out, instead of buying, I can't even remember. We were buying something from Ozark Natural Foods once a month, and it was $80. It's
you're going to pay a lot if O&F is selling it.
Yeah. I'm you can
$41 a pound free range chicken.
Yeah. We could go to Walmart. It's we can go to Walmart and get the same exact thing for $8 or just not get it.
Yeah.
It's it's just pretty simple on some of those things.
Well, and then you really got into some of the stuff getting the most financing, the best terms from your vendors, which is always a critical bootstrapping strategy.
Yeah. Yeah. Getting vendor financing was great. Getting the credit built back up, because that was a problem. So, doing that and filling out all the credit applications for all the new vendors, it's I did that from, October until basically March. It was every single day was 2 hours of filling out credit applications and sending them off to vendors and explaining hey, I know that I am a 23-year-old dude that has no history, and my credit history goes back for 2 years when I got the first college credit card that had a credit limit of $500.
Right.
I'm I know I don't have much history, but the business has been around forever, and being able to leverage that this business has been here for 40 years. There's been some late charges, but they've always gotten paid.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm and if you
new owner now,
yeah,
I'm
going
to have late charges.
Exactly. Yeah. It's leveraging that, just being hey, it's a new owner, and we are and I tell them, I'm hey, I've cut out this amount of costs here and there, so I'm I will be able to pay you. And a lot of them, it's all right, well, we'll either give you these terms, or we'll hey, you pay off this little order right now. It's you pay off a $500 order, and then if we know you can pay $500 cash, then we'll give you $2,000 to $3,000 in credit. So,
Justin, that might have been one of the smartest things you could have ever done.
Yeah,
right out the gate like that. Mark, you can agree with. Because that's going to allow you to do so much more, and take some new levels of risk that might pay off in a big way too.
That's already paying off in me right now. It was the biggest
the inventory.
Yeah. Well, that was the biggest risk
Building it up.
right now was inventory, because it was like we needed stuff in the store, because like the big thing that was hard for me was like I feel like the new retail landscape is, especially for smaller shops, is a little bit more experiential, and it is just like you need to have the stuff, but also it's the experience. Like you want to come in and you want to like feel one that you're welcomed. They want to have the right stuff. You want to have knowledgeable people. You want to have a good experience when you enter and leave. It doesn't feel like it's a chore. Like, you don't feel like you have to go grocery shopping. It's you get to come here, hang out, have a fun time. It's like, and that's where like the relational building, it's like, that's one of my favorite parts is like, I disdain sitting at a desk, but I have to. I love sitting up at the registers, just shooting the breeze with guys that come in. Like I talked the other day with some guy that had floated the entire Buffalo with his son for a senior trip and did it in 4 days. And I was like, man, like I've had a couple other guys that I know that have done it, and it's like, they're like 6 days, and they're like, yeah, we're just moving.
Yeah.
And it was like just talking with him about how he got to hang out with his son for 4 days. It's like, that's what I love doing.
Right.
I love talking to him, and that's part of like that experiential thing. It's like, one, I enjoy it because I just like talking about outdoor stuff, but being able to like have the, like whenever he thinks about coming into Uncle Sam's now, hopefully he thinks, oh, there's some cool guys in there that we get to talk to, and they have the stuff that we need. Like he needed some tick spray. It's like, all right, we got your tick spray. Let's talk about your floating trip.
They couldn't agree more. I mean, so many people, we get wrapped up into all the supposed to do's and the, all the mechanics and, the logic of the business, but it's really, I mean, and folks mostly buy, I mean, it's like one of the greatest stats that they mostly buy on emotional basis.
Yeah.
Everyone tries to be logical about it, and I think
That's so true.
And AI is going to make it even more apparent that logic is everything, but it's not. I mean, you can build a very successful business model by just having that relation, and then they come in, they got knowledgeable people that can help them make good decisions.
Yeah.
And there's somebody real behind it. And I think one of my big things just as a customer is if I did business with you, like if I have a problem with something, you're going to help take care of my problem, and you cannot get that in a lot of places. It's just so mechanical and robotic. I mean, and that
I'm telling you, that's so true. I'm involved with a business right now, and bad customer service will kill you.
Yeah.
But it's an opportunity to distinguish yourself if you have a problem.
Yeah.
So we had some guy that had a problem and a part broke, and so puts it on Facebook, after so many miles, such and such broke. And so one of the people from the company responded pretty quickly and said, hey, I'll call you tomorrow. Or
It's beautiful. God, man.
okay. I thought that was good, but it wasn't as good as I wanted, because what I wanted,
it's almost beautiful.
What I wanted to be said was, we will send you a new blank tomorrow. There's a difference in I'll call you versus, oh my gosh, sorry about that, we'll send you a new blank tomorrow. Then it's solved. Everybody sees it's solved.
Okay, so I got some more beautiful than you did, Mark.
Okay.
We will send you a new part, and I will call you tomorrow to make sure you're
okay.
happy. Okay, that's even better.
That's even better, yeah. But it's just like, show the solution and then show everybody how responsive you are, and then they're just all going to be like, wow, nobody else does that. Because they don't, So you take a negative and you make it into a positive. Yeah. Big companies just can't function like that.
No.
But, I was just thinking today, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I love business. I like starting businesses, getting involved with them. I like turning them around. I like growing them, all that. But I hate the bureaucracy associated with business.
That's terrible.
Don't you? I mean, just like one new venture right now, I got to get a sales tax permit. Okay. Yep. So I look into that, and it says, well, if your city requires a business license, you must provide that. Okay. So then I'm like, oh shit, now I got to deal with the city. So business license. So I started looking into, I've had them before. We all have. Anybody's had a business in Fayetteville, I'm sure you've got one.
I've got one.
We've had them. It's a little card and you post it up, whatever. We've had multiple ones of those for all our businesses. But this new thing is going to be it's going to be rolled under a company I started in 2005 as a holding company. It never had any operations at all. Right? So when you get into the business license, it says, well, if the business has been around for more than 4 months, then, you're going to be pay penalties. I'm like, holy cow, I'm going to pay 18 years of penalties for not having a business license so I can get my sales tax license. But this business didn't require a license. It had no operation. It's just a holding company.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just one of like a million,
Yep.
I just hate all that stuff. Just like today, one of the banks we dealt with, like, we need A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And I'm like, for years, I had people who worked for me. I could go, hey, so-and-so, send that on. And they just, gather it all up. But now there's nobody.
Now you're
You are
forced
the
into
small
it.
business. It's like, it's you.
Oh, yeah.
You got to go make the copies. You got to go hunt up down the old stuff. And that's one of the things I just think is so aggravating, don't you?
It was a little bit annoying, and I felt guilty because it's like, I really have to go do this, but it's like I don't
want to do it.
I don't want to do it, and like realistically, my time is better spent doing other things. But it's like I say that to myself, but this is something that legitimately has to be done for me to do business. So it's like,
yes,
my time is not better spent doing something else because this is what gets it to run.
I think that discourages a lot of people, or they just don't do it, like you said, and then they get themselves in all kinds of hot water that's completely avoidable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I never have once in my entire entrepreneurial career ever one time had the government help me with anything.
Yeah.
Not one time.
Well, the only
other than roadways.
PPP money was a blessing. I will say that.
I mean,
it was like a godsend for a lot of people.
No, it was. I mean, that was a one-time case. But
right.
But even then, with the company of our size at that time, I mean, it helped a little bit. But
it wasn't a huge deal.
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, like we were, our company at that time too probably wasn't, one that was so impact. We were a digital agency.
Yeah.
I mean, like, so we're
right.
Like, we didn't have a physical. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't, but I mean, it was helpful. We needed it, definitely appreciated it.
When I was 15 years old, in a town of 8,000 people, I started detailing cars in the gravel behind my dad's shop. And it got to the point where I'd have a few cars a week. I'd wash, vacuum, wipe down, all that stuff. Had some repeat clients. I started running Facebook ads for like $10. I could reach like half the city essentially. And I got a lot of business off of the Facebook ads. And apparently the Facebook ads is where I crossed the line because I got a call from the mayor directly and said that you need a business license. I was making like $200 a week, but at this point, it's like, you need a business license. Like, well, the business license is, half my yearly salary. It wasn't, but I mean, I was, after chemicals and stuff like that, I wasn't making a ton of money, and it was all cash and whatever. But I was a 15-year-old, and I got a call saying that there was going to be
from the mayor,
from the mayor directly.
That's hysterical.
There was going to be intense ramifications if I didn't get a business license. So what I did is I said, well, I'm not my own business. I'm just working out of my dad's shop. I was saying all the money flows through him. It's just I've got this new service offered by the shop. So I just added in the Facebook name. It was JS Auto Detailing, which is big enough. Then it was JS Auto Detailing at Johnny's Pro Auto Body. And then I didn't get another call after that. And I just said that I was running all the money through the shop. And it was just a new service we offered. But it's almost anti-business. I remember this one woman in my neighborhood. I used to have a tutor in junior high because apparently like a 98 in math wasn't good enough. I'd have to be 100. So I had a math tutor, and she would tutor like 2 kids a week, and then the city tried to shut her down because she had a business running out of her home. And it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, that's the other thing I was worried about with this business license. Like, I don't live in an area that has this RO zoning, residential office. It's just R4, 4 units per acre. So then I could run afoul of them on that alone, So there's all these silly little hurdles, and so I don't want to just sit here and rag on the government at all. It's not my intent, but I do think, and Justin, I think you've had a pretty good reception from the community, right?
Yeah.
Overall, I mean, people are glad you're there. They're glad you took over. They're coming in the store and going, "Wow, it's better," and that's super reinforcing for you.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that at some level, in a lot of these municipal government entities, there's the implicit assumption that if you're in business, you're greedy and you're a crook, and you're somehow doing something bad that they need to stop you from. And I hate that. I mean, I really felt that as a real estate developer.
Oh, yeah.
That's you are inherently evil, and no matter what you do, if you're tearing down a crack house, the way they look at it is, now there's nowhere for that homeless person to camp out. You're evil.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so twisted that that gets discouraging. But you just can't need all that external reinforcement, right?
Yeah.
You just have to do it.
Yeah, you just have to do it.
On a different note, one thing I'm interested in is when you were working there, were you in the terms of HR, which is funny to say in a small business, I don't even know how many employees you have, but did you say, hey, the HR needs to be overhauled, or like, were they doing payroll right, or were there benefits? And then like when you hit the ground running, which I know you did you start implementing things? Did you start changing things when it comes to how you treat your people, pay your people, all the different stuff?
I think so. Definitely the treat. And so we were just running payroll through QuickBooks. I switched to a payroll company called The Payroll Company. Yeah. Like, we went live beginning of the 1st of May was whenever they ran the first one, mainly because of paperwork stuff that it wasn't able to run sooner. But yeah, we switched that up. I switched to open book management. I let everyone know, like right now I'm not paying myself enough to where I feel guilty about how much I pay myself. So I'm like, this is how much I pay myself. This is how much like this is how much the store's making. This is exactly what we're spending on rent. This is what we paid like over Christmas. It's like, I got them food for the 3 busiest weekends that we had. And it's like, yeah, here's the $60 that we spent on Domino's for the 3 weekends that like for the month. And it was like, hey, this is what we're getting paid for this. This is what we're paying for that. And I think that has helped a ton with just the morale of our guys. It's like they trust that, like,
yes,
hey, like, especially for like us, because I mean, we are such a cash intensive business and everything is so, it's all related to our inventory and our products. So like, that's where we're investing our money in. And it's like, well, man, like, hey, this is where we have our cash tied up right now. It's like, that's why I can't order from this company. And like, we were told that, and it's like, I was told that for years, but it's like, well, but like how much cash is actually tied up in these other things? It's like, once we receive it and I get the invoice, I'm like, okay, well, that was $3,000 right there. But it's like, I have no comprehension of is $3,000 a lot or is $3,000 a little in relation to this month and in our monthly or weekly like budget.
I'm so proud of you that you're giving them open book, because,
Yeah.
you know, that's been a big thing I've always harped on. And I just think it helps build trust, as you said, and
I've got
understanding.
nothing to hide.
Understanding of the business.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have anything to hide if you're making a decent living, as long as you're doing the same for everybody else too.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to pay them all what you make. You're the owner.
Yeah.
You have a lot more at risk. You've invested money. They have
Yeah.
invested. You need to explain that to people.
Yeah. And that's what they
you
all
know.
understand that, which
Yeah.
is something that was like, I was like, hey, if the ship goes down, I go down with it. Y'all get to walk away.
Right. Yeah, you can
And
go
it
find
was-
another job.
Yeah.
I've lived on both sides of, we got closed book management.
Yeah.
And we had open book. And I mean, there's night and day difference of just morale,
Yes.
growth.
I think just their incentive to sell,
Oh,
because it's like they get to look at it.
Absolutely.
Like they're invested in like our daily sales. Like
Yep.
they all want to know, like, hey, at
How we
2
do
p.m., how are we doing? And then like I'll get asked, like, they're like, oh, how did we do the past 2 days? Because they didn't work the past 2 days.
Yeah.
I'm like, I love that. Like, that's awesome.
Exactly.
And they're like invested in, like, man, we want this to do well. Part of it is like they enjoy selling and like they love the stuff that we get in. So it's like, oh, well, if we sell more, it's like right now we've got Benchmade knives that I just reopened our account, and they've been a little bit of a problem just getting the
product.
the product to us right now. But it's like, I'm like, hey, you guys sell this amount, I'll put a big order from our other knife company in, so then we can have even more knives, because we're fairly stocked now, but it's like we're missing our Benchmade for sure.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, you guys want that? Let's sell more. And they have the incentive of like, I want those knives because I want to mess around with them whenever no one's in the store. So it's like, I'm like, all right, like, you sell more, and I'll order the knives.
Do it together. I mean, you know, I think the reality is like, in today's time with all the information in the world, like, we need the open book policy is actually like, unless you're doing it, people have access to information. They know better. They have, you know, so if you're not transparent, there's no reason why. It means that you must be hiding something, because, you know, I mean, just the whole workforce has changed, and its ability to get, you know, to understand what's going on.
I saw a study once, and I have not been able to find it again. I have it in writing somewhere.
Yeah.
But it was a study of restaurant workers, And this study claimed, and I know this will sound beyond outrageous to all of you, that the average restaurant worker thought the owner made 29 times as much as they did
Wow.
out of the business. 29 times.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
How could you be that insane? Okay. And that far off base.
Yeah.
And so do you think if somebody thinks you're making 29 times what you are out of that business,
They're going to be
Yeah.
motivated.
yeah, do you think that's going to impact their behavior? Do you think they're going to be worried about waste or
Yeah.
stealing something from you or giving something to their
Mhm.
friends? No way.
Or they're not talking smack to
Yeah.
your customers, to the associates.
Exactly.
It's just poisonous.
It's terrible. And that level of ignorance is, of course, I'm sure it varies greatly.
Yeah.
If you had workers at Megacorp, they might not necessarily think it's that big of a gap.
I can't really think of a negative about being open and
I can't either.
transparent.
I think it was the only argument that I heard from other people that, like, when I can't remember who I was talking to, but I was talking to someone and they're like, well, what if your competitors find out? And I was like, well,
What?
I'll just work harder and do better. I'm like,
What if they do? They don't
I'm
do
like,
anything
that's-
with it.
Exactly. Oh, I'm like, I can know, like, I'll go over there and tell them myself. I'm like, this is
Exactly.
how much I make. And it's like, and I'm going to make more.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you guys going to do about it? It's
Yeah,
like, that's
that's
like,
right.
They're
yeah,
going
right.
to do that.
It's like just going to be fun. It's like, and it's
It's
not
so
necessarily, it's like, I'm not going to take money from you. It's like, my goal is to bring, like, especially with the outdoors, because I'm so passionate about it. It's like,
Uh-huh.
I'm not trying to take business from other outdoor companies. I'm trying to grow
The outdoor market.
the outdoor market. Like,
Yeah,
the people that are
exactly.
coming into the outdoors.
Right. We
It's
all
like-
benefit.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I would like to see more people out there. And then I'm going to kick myself whenever I'm floating on the river and I see too many people and I'm like, well, you're sitting in my fishing spot, but it'll be greater in the end.
Right. It's the same thing with business plans. I used to just put mine out there for anybody to see because I knew my competitors weren't going to do it. Not only could they not do it, they didn't have the same resources. They didn't have the same history. They didn't have the same people.
Yeah.
They
Okay.
have the same dog as you had.
Yeah. But I mean, it's like, I love it when students come to me and they're like, I've got this business plan I want to share with you and get your input on, but sign an NDA before I show it to you. I'm like, sorry, I'm done. Meeting's over. Okay. You can't share that. What the heck?
Yeah.
People are so goofy about that.
Yeah.
It's really a backward way to think. Anyway, The Great Game of Business. I don't like business books. You should read that sometime.
Okay.
Because there's really some good stuff in there about open book. They're big advocates of open.
And it was at a business just north of here in Springfield.
That's
wasn't it?
right. Yeah, Springfield Rebuilders.
Remanufacturing.
Yeah, remanufacturing. Yeah, Jack Stack.
Hmm.
And he owned Inc. magazine. He may still own it. I don't know, but he did own it for and probably still does. But yeah, so that's some great stuff, Justin. And then you did farm your payroll out because that's one thing every
Sure.
small business
Yeah.
could do. You started to talk about that.
That doesn't really cost much more, dude.
No, it doesn't.
It cost, I think, $20 more a month. For
That's,
me.
yeah,
It was
you got to
nothing,
do that.
And it was
Solves all that.
'Cause if you
when I
missed-
had a problem
yeah.
with a wage withholding tax, and I've got an email, and I just about had a heart attack.
Bro,
I'm like,
bro,
I'm not messing with this.
They will
Just-
chain your doors, buddy.
So I know I talked some smack about the government, but and they haven't helped. But I definitely don't mess around with
Oh,
them
no.
either.
Yeah, exactly.
Sales tax, and then if you get into payroll
yeah.
tax issues, dude,
They'll just
it's-
shut you down.
It's terrible.
Oh,
Not to
yeah.
mention the PR on it. It'll kill you.
Yeah.
They
Can't
will
mess with it.
literally put chains on the
Yep.
doors with
Yeah.
padlocks. It's
Yeah.
frightening.
Yep, it is.
So that's really cool, though. So you got big plans for the business. What are you going to do differently other than you're putting more money in inventory and your open book and you're adding some new products?
Yeah.
What else is coming down the pike for Uncle Sam's at this point?
I think a big thing right now is like we're sponsoring a few like events. Like we just sponsored, I guess it was back at the end of March, and like they have a bike race down at Devil's Den, and like just helping out with that. There's a smallmouth tournament benefiting the Mayfly Project that
Love it.
we sponsored a little bit. Like gave out like a bunch of koozies and stuff for like door prizes and all those things. So definitely more outreach in that sense, where it's not like a direct sell. It's just like, hey, I'm
Marketing.
also passionate about these things, and I would love to help out in any way that I can. And giving some koozies and some net gators and
Mhm.
like a couple of wallets to like just bring more people there, I think is great. And I love the Mayfly Project and the bike race for Devil's Den because Devil's Den is awesome.
Yeah,
sure.
But any of those things, Right now, I now feel confident enough with our inventory. Part of the reason I was not super gung-ho on marketing of like right off the bat was, one, I had to figure out everything, and tossing that on top was a little bit tough. Just as far as like true like advertisements or like figuring out any of that. And I felt like if people walked in the store, especially in like January and February post Christmas, it's like the experience would not have been great just because our inventory levels were so low.
Right. So promoting and then dragging people in and then they can't find what they want would be bad.
Yeah. So I was trying not to do that. I feel very confident now that we have the inventory that people can walk in and regardless of what they're looking for, there will at least be something in that realm.
Yeah.
So
well, that's good. That's a big hurdle.
Yeah. So that was a tough one to get over, just because it was a ton of inventory that we were bringing in and moving around. So,
we just gave me a good idea, though. I said, just gave me an idea. Maybe we need to throw a Janus motorcycle in there.
I think you absolutely
Army green.
Yes.
At Uncle Sam's, American made.
I've got space in the front display.
That
Boom,
could
done.
be cool. Yeah.
Just sold it, Mark.
Yeah, baby. All right.
Everybody's always about you. Put the motorcycle in their shop, Mark. Don't be shy about that offer.
Oh yeah.
So that's good. You've really crossed, I think, some big hurdles to
and there was we did
get where you are now.
Yeah, and just even like the interior of the store, just like changing that up. It was like you walked into like our shoe section, and on the wall was this map of Arkansas that took up about a sixth of the wall, and then the rest of the wall was blank, and it was like
not good,
puke yellow color paint.
Yeah,
I hate the paint. It's bad. So like one of my ideas is like getting people. I got the okay from our landlord to like paint murals inside of the store. So like bringing like local people
very cool
to paint murals. I'm like, we have tons of open space, and it's like I'd love to have like local artists or anyone that likes to paint be like, hey, come and paint murals in here. Like I'll pay for the paint, whatever, we can figure out something, but just like have something fun that sets us apart. And then doing like some sort of like outreach thing, this idea for Uncle Sam's after hours, doing like once a month during the summer. I haven't figured it out fully yet, but doing like outreach things where it's like, hey, we do like a gear giveaway, you come out, store stays open later, we've got drinks, we can bring in some people to talk about whatever, like we can bring in a biologist from the state that talks about the bear population or something like that, to just do a little talk and then hang out or do like a cornhole tournament or something like that. So those have been kind of brewing, trying to figure out the detailed plans on that. And right now I'm doing a lot of SEO stuff on the website.
Yeah, smart.
Teaching myself that. So
do Google, just focus on your Google places.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the number one. Put your hours in there, coupons, discounts, the inventory. I mean, if you just did that, like that's the number one thing you could do.
Yeah.
I mean,
you're talking to the master.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy,
figuring that out right
he
now.
understands.
Like, don't worry about all the keywords and all that kind of junk right now. I mean, if you master that, you're going to be showing up, and then do some podcast videos. Yeah. And put them on YouTube and optimize them, put them back to your site.
Yeah. I mean, all the videos of the people enjoying the outdoor activities professionally produced and distributed.
Yeah.
Where you can get sponsors paying for that then, right? That sell products. Sponsors being companies that Justin does business with.
Yeah, suppliers.
That would tie the whole thing together. I bet I know somebody could help with that.
I bet you do. Interesting.
Indeed. But, okay, well, listen, it's been great having you here, Justin, and I appreciate you too, Johnny. We'll have to have you come back with some other...
Yeah, I'd love to learn more about like the educational part of that, because I think that's important for listeners.
Yeah.
Like because the entrepreneurial education, quote unquote, is not really that old, or it's kind of a new thing, right?
It is. I mean, when I started teaching at the Walden College 19 years ago, I was the only undergrad professor in that field. Just me, and then Carol Reeves handled the grad school. And so now we've got like 28 people in our department.
It's great.
It's even a relatively new topic and discipline in academia. There's only a couple journals that differentiate entrepreneurship from just general business. But if you look at the general business journals, you'll see things on Fortune 500s. And you won't see much stuff on companies that have 20 or less employees, 50 or less employees. But we're starting to see more journals pop up about entrepreneurship. We're starting to see more of the bigger journals accept entrepreneurship papers, and that's been really nice. But it's still very, very new.
Well, and it's totally different to be a really great manager and to be an entrepreneur. I mean, a lot of people lump those into the same thing, and it's not. One of my favorite definitions of an entrepreneur is that you're taking some sort of personal risk, with it. Like you were talking about your staff earlier. If everything goes down, everybody gets to walk away, but not you.
Yeah.
That's a difference.
I think it's sort of conventional wisdom. I mean, academia has poo-pooed entrepreneurship basically for a long time. It's starting to change. One of my theories on why there's not a lot of research on it is it's harder to research. Fortune 500 companies, there's tons of info out there. They're publicly traded.
True.
20-person companies, there's no info on, or very little, and that's a problem. But anyway, I do think that it's a topic that's growing in interest. But a conventional wisdom is that, well, the people who start businesses aren't necessarily the same ones to manage them later. But I've also found that sometimes those managers who don't have that entrepreneurial background and understanding, they're not always as great as everybody thinks they are either. You know what I mean? You can back out of your business way too soon, and it can lose its entrepreneurial spirit. And you hire these outside managers that come in that worked at ABC company, and then the next thing you know, all they do is talk about, well, at ABC we did this, and at ABC we did that, and at I've been on boards with some of these guys. I'm like, you know what? Just shut that blank up. We don't give a shit how ABC did things. They suck. Okay, we're not trying to model ourselves after bureaucratic, not growing ABC and ruin our entrepreneurial business with all this bureaucratic stuff that you want to throw in here. Anyway, it's just sort of one of my little pet peeves is everybody thinks that the entrepreneurs just need to get out of the way at some point and let the professional managers take over. Doesn't always work so well. Yeah. So anyway, well, listen, we appreciate you guys being here and giving your time. And Eric, it's always good to be with you, buddy.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate your invite.
So we'll see you all on the next episode of Big Talk about small business.
It's great.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Big Talk about small business. If you have any questions or ideas for upcoming shows, be sure to head over to our website, www.bigtalkaboutsmallbusiness.com, and click on the Ask the Host button for the chance to have your questions answered on the show. Stay connected with us on LinkedIn at Big Talk About Small Business. And be sure to head over to our website to read articles, browse episodes, and ask questions about upcoming shows.